Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Samach Gimel in Ksubas, as we learned for Shlema for Elazar ben Rum and Yosef ben Chaim Michal. Yesterday we started the famous story of Rav Akiva, how he was a shepherd and he admired the daughter of Kalba Savua, who he saw that she was very modest, and she said, "If you marry me, if I marry you, would you study Torah?" So they did so, and they sort of eloped without telling the father. The father heard about it, and he took her out of the will and forswore her from having any pleasure. He went to the yeshiva, studied there for 12 years, came home with 12,000 students, and as he approached the city, he heard an elderly man telling his wife, who had been without the husband for 12 years, the top of Samach Gimel, you are effectively leading a living widowhood, that you're living like a widow, even though your husband's alive. Is this what you want out of life? Amrlei, she responded, either the size, if Rabbi Akiva, my husband, would listen to me, he would stay there another 12 years. I'm happy if he would stay there another 12 years and would not show up. Amar, so when Rabbi Akiva heard that, he says, "Oh, Kavis, I'm doing it with permission." Remember, we learned in the Mishnah that you could stay away from learning, you could leave your wife for 30 days without her permission. With permission, we said what's proper: a month here, a month there, or or 2 months at home, 1 month away. There were other shittas that if they agree, you could stay even for several years, for a long period of time, as we see from these cases. So when he heard that, Amar B'shuskavid, and I'm doing it with permission, she agrees. She's happy for me to go learn Hadar Ozel. So he went back to the yeshiva Yosef Tresar Shanachmini. He learned there another 12 years. Everybody knows the story. They robbed in the yeshiva. Kiyosa, when he came home, he brought with him 24,000 students with him. Eventually, I don't know if these are the same students who died during the Yomei Sefira, but he became a very great man, a great reputation, and he had all these students. Shama Visu, his wife, heard that he's coming. So she went out to greet him with all the other people. Amrullah Shivasa, so her neighbor said to her, Shuli mani levushe v'chsai, go borrow some decent clothes and cover yourself. You know, you're living like a pauper. You have no income from your husband. Your father cut you off. You look like a schlepper here. You look like a poor person. Cover up some clothes. You know, it's not proper to go out to greet a great man looking the way you do. Amrullah, she responded to them, they had tzaddik nefesh b'hemto. A tzaddik knows the soul of his animal. In other words, he'll know who I am. I don't have to dress up. He'll know who I am. When she reached him, she tried to, with throngs of people greeting Rabbi Akiva, she went to him, nafla alapa, she fell on her face, she was kissing his feet. Rabbi Akiva's shamas, now only at 24,000 talmidim, apparently some of them also served as his stewards, as his shamases. They were pushing her away. Who's this lady trying to touch his feet? Amrlahu. So Rabbi Akiva, who recognized her, told the shamas, Shafkua, leave her alone. Shalif shalachem shalahu. All that we have, all that I have, and that you have, all our Torah is because of her. Shama Avua, and they were reunited. Shama Avua, her father heard, but he didn't hear the whole story. It wasn't on the internet. He didn't know exactly who came home. Shama Avua, the Asagav Rabbi. Father heard that a great man came to the city, Lamasa, to the city. Amr, he said, Ezel Gabay, let me go visit him. Efshad the maid from the door. Maybe he'll make my netter. Maybe he'll break my netter. After all these years, I'm willing to, to forget my netter and take my daughter back in. Osla Gabay. So he reached Rabbi Akiva. Amr died to the Gavar Abba Minadris. So Rabbi Akiva said, okay, he was looking for a Pesach for the netter, right? To be matcha the netter. Had you known that she would marry a great man, would you have made the netter? Amr afilu perak echad afilu locha achas. Right now, even a person who would study one parak or know one halacha, in other words, as long as he wasn't a total boor like this Akiva fellow was when he was a shepherd, as long as he would learn anything, I would accept him as a son-in-law. Amrlei, Anahu, I am the one. Nafla when Kalba Sabur heard that, he fell on his face, Vanashke Alkari, and he kissed his feet. The Avle Palgavamone, and he gave him half of his treasure. He gave him half of his assets. So the 24 years that he spent in yeshiva, although he wasn't with his wife, certainly he did gain some money from there, right? So V'yavlei Pal gave him half his money. Barsi Rabbi Akiva's own daughter, Avdalei Ben Azai, did the same thing, sent him away to learn. Behind Damar Inshi, Rechila, Basar Rechila, Azla. The young lamb goes according, follows the mother lamb. The mother lamb, the young one follows the mother. As are the actions of the mother did that, so are the actions of the daughter. Ben Azai was known not to have children, so apparently maybe he went away in yeshiva, maybe he was married for a while to her, because it says Avdei Ben Azai, did Ben Azai, but Ben Azai, I think we had the Gemara in Yavamas, Samach Beis, that also around here, Samach Beis, Samach Gimel in Yavamas, that he wasn't married, and they said, you're preaching pru urvu and you're not marrying yourself, so you're not practicing what you preach. And he says, Ma esay nafshi choshka b'Torah. Rabbi Yosef brayed the Rava Shadrei Avu Alabei Rav. His father, Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rava, so his father sent him to the yeshiva. Lekamin Rabbi Yosef, part of the Rabbi Yosef. Rava was a student of Rabbi Yosef. This was Abaya, and Rava sent his own son. The son of Yosef to learn. It was also named Rabbi Yosef. He sent his son to learn in the yeshiva, like his own yeshiva. Remember when I was in Telz, they would always get a lot of guys whose parents had gone to Telz, so they wanted them to go to their alma mater, so to speak. Anyway, so he sent to the yeshiva. Pascal Shesson. So they set up that 6 years. We're giving you 6 years of kes. Stay in the yeshiva for 6 years, then come home, and you'll continue your marriage. Kevitlas Shani, when 3 years have passed, Matamali Yom Kippur came the Erev Yom Kippur. Amr said, look, 3 years already. Amr Ezel let me go see my family. Let me come home. I'll take a short break. It's Beinos Manim. Sukkot is coming up. Erev Yom Kippur. I'll go see my family. Shemavu, his father heard that he was coming home, and he was angry because stopping to learn would, it wouldn't be the same anymore, even if he goes back. Shakamani, he took a weapon for Nafiklafe. He went out there to beat him. Yeah, he says, what are you doing home here? Amalei. So Nosach Niskarta, what did you remember your zona, like you're coming home, or some say Economy like Nosach Niskarta, you remembered your dove. So it's the Zion. If you cut off the Zion, it becomes a Yud. Right? Did you remember, like that's what you're in? So they were fighting about this. He said, I just came home to see my family, for Yom Tov, and his father said you shouldn't have left the yeshiva. Itrud, they were occupied with this fight so much on Erev Yom Kippur. Lo marvsik, lo marvsik. Neither one had the Sudan of Sekas. They went into Yom Kippur hungry. Neither one of them had a Sudan of Sekas because they were fighting so much. You see what they were, what it meant to study Torah uninterrupted. I still remember when I was in Chaim Berlin, there was there was a guy in the yeshiva there, and he was like, he would come in late, but he was always, studying and occupied learning Torah. And we would learn till 6 o'clock, and then we would go to college at night. And the mashgiach, whose name was also Shlomo Kalbach, he was the first cousin of the famous Shlomo Kalbach, the singer. But this one, he was just nifter, I think. He was about 100 years old. Yeah. Pardon? Just died. Yeah. So he once told me, he said that, you think that, you come on time, you came from Telz, you think you come on time every day, and this guy comes late, but his mind is totally occupied with Torah. It's true. When you're having a chemistry test at 8 o'clock at night, your mind in the afternoon doesn't read Tosas the same way when you're occupied. When he's totally occupied, and that's when that was the idea that you shouldn't have come home even for a short break because it takes your mind off of things. All right, back to the Mishnah.
Remember Rabbi Gifter's famous line of 2 times 12 is not equal 24?
Yeah.
Rabbi Gifter said, he said, Rabbi Kiva could have just come in, said hello. Why did he have to leave after the 12 years? He could have just come in and said hello. It's up to 2 times 12 is not the same as 20.
Not 20. Very good. Very good. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Hamaredas al Bala. Woman rebels against her husband. She rebels. What do we mean by that? In what sense did she rebel? Well, the Gemara will explain. We reduce her ksuba. In other words, we try to talk to her, but meanwhile, while we talk to her and say, listen, we try to convince her, and we give her advice. But during that time, we reduce her ksuba. Shiva dinar Shabbos, 7 dinners a week. Tosfos says it could be because there's 7 jobs that she's supposed to do, but Tosfos discounts that because The Gemara will explain the reason. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shiva Tarpikin, 7 half dinners. A tarpik, Gemara will explain tomorrow, is a half a dinner. Ad Masayu Poches, how far do you go? In other words, you take off 7, let's call it in dollar terms. Let's say she's supposed to get $200. You take off $7 a week until there's nothing left. At that point, you give her a get. You say, that's it. You've lost your ksuba. You rebelled. You're not acting as a wife. So that's it. That's it. No, you keep on reducing it, even if you run into her assets. After the $200 is gone, you start removing her assets. Behold, keep going. In other words, you can keep her as a wife and keep reducing it, even if there's no assets left. You go into minus. Here in Israel, we know if people go into minus in the bank, that she owes him money, and maybe she'll get some Yerusha, maybe a great uncle will die, and she'll get something you could take out of that too. So Rav Yosef says you keep on going. How far do you go? Tomorrow's more will explain that up to about a year, and that's it. So that's the difference. But everybody agrees that if she rebels against him, her ksuba is reduced. Then the mission reduces. Yeah, Besin will do it. They set up right. What you do is, it's good. The Gemara is going to talk about that. That they produce, like they go to the Besin, and the Besin will produce a letter. It's like a like a writ that she is rebelled and that he's entitled to to reduce the money. Same way, what happens if the husband rebels? What do we mean by that rebellion? We'll talk about that too. What does it mean that he rebels? You add on to the ksuba. For every week that he rebels, you add on shlosha dirham shabbos, only 3 dinners. He reduced 7 dinners from her. She only gets added on 3 dinners a week. We'll talk about that. Rabbi Yehuda says, like he said before in the first case, that when you reduce her by 7 dinners, it's 7 half dinners. Here he says also, by you add on to her ksuba, if he rebels, you're adding on also half dinners, 3 half dinners. Moredes mimai. So first the Gemara says, Moredes mimai. We're not going to talk about the logic yet of why she's rebelling. We're not talking about why she's rebelling. In other words, what is her attitude? We're talking about from what is she rebelling. So we're going to talk about why she's rebels later on. Right now we're talking about what is she rebelling? What is she actually doing? She's not cooking? What is she doing? So Moredes mimai, Rafuna Amar mitashu shamita. Okay, that's the logical thing, right? She refuses to live with him as a husband and wife. No conjugal visits. So Rafuna Amar mitashu shamita. Rav Yosef, Rav Yichini malacha from work. She doesn't do the jobs from what she's supposed to do, to produce work, to knit, to sew, to cook, etc., to clean. Okay, that's what she's rebelling. Okay, let's see. In this machlokus, we're gonna now try to analyze and see who's right. Tanan. The same thing if a man rebels against us. Okay, she can rebel from him, he can rebel from her. He's supposed to fulfill his conjugal duties, right? Just to say, whether it's a derisive rabbanan, he's supposed to fulfill his obligation and she's supposed to fulfill hers. So if you're talking about that makes sense. So it makes sense according to Rav Huna that the rebellion refers to bia. If it's from work, he's supposed to provide for her, but what work he's supposed to do for her? Let's say he says, I'm not going to feed you and I'm not going to support you. In other words, that's the work that he's supposed to do. She's supposed to do the work in the house, so to speak, and he's supposed to do the work outside the house, bring home the money and supply her, right? Support her. So in a case like that, that's what we're talking about, his malacha. Says there is no such thing. If a man says, I'm not going to feed you, I'm not going to support you, yotzi ksuba immediately, right? You have to give her ksuba right away. There is no situation where he can say, I'm not working. If she's not working, so fine. It makes sense. She's not working. She's not doing her jobs. We're going to reduce her ksuba in an attempt to convince her to reconsider her objection. But if a man doesn't want to support his wife, you give her a ksuba and that's it. It's over. What do you mean it's over? You first try to convince him to change his mind. So if he refuses work for her, she's supposed to work for him and he's supposed to work for her. They're supposed to have a union, a marriage where they all support each other. She's supposed to work for him. He's supposed to work for her. So he doesn't do work for her. Yes, give a ksuba if you can't convince him to reconsider. But meanwhile, during that time that you're convincing him, week goes by, they go for counseling and they go to the rabbi and they go to all these advisors and try to get him back together. During that time, if he as he continues to refuse, he has to add on to a ksuba. So at this point, we have this machlokus whether it refers to bia, whether it refers to work, support, and we haven't proved either way. Mace for the Gemara is going to try to prove. Yeah.
According to, for example,
Mm-hmm.
a woman who refuses to do any work is not considered a moredet.
Is. Right. That's
so
excellent.
Either one.
Right.
She refuses to work.
Right.
But and
that's not a reason to reduce the ksuba.
That's not a reason.
Yeah, he could say, listen, he could say, well, I'm divorcing you, and here's your ksuba, I'm out. Right. He could say, I'm divorcing you, and that's it. I'm divorcing you, and that's it. We'll see though that there are certain situations where if she refuses it because she finds him abominable, detestable, so he can even not give her ksuba, he can divorce her without a ksuba. But if she refuses that, right. But Rav Huna says what we talk about here, the moredes that we say you should reduce her ksuba and try to convince her in the interim for the next year or whatever. We'll see how long that is. You can reduce her ksuba during that time while she goes for counseling. While she goes for counseling, you can reduce her ksuba. If she refuses to work, do anything in the house, just get rid of her. That's Rav Huna's opinion. Basically, now we're going to try to prove another case. The Bryce is going to say on the base here that these rules apply whether she's engaged or not. Now, engaged means she's betrothed, so she's not looking for bia, but she's refusing to consummate. She's referring to marry him. Talk about even a nida who refuses to have bia. Of course, doesn't mean during the time that she's a nida. She's just saying, I don't want to have any relations with you at all. Even if she's sick. Chola does not mean you had the sniffles, right? Chola means sick, sick in bed, that they can't. Even a shemeres yavam who says up front, I don't want to consummate with him, I'm not going to stay with him. All these rules apply, meaning that you can reduce the ksuba, right? Reduce the ksuba. So now we skip the parentheses, the last line. If you say that her rebellion is from tashmish, you can mention a chola too, because even a chola can have bia. You can have bia with her. She might be sick in bed, but you can have bia. If you're talking about she rebels from malacha, chola bas malachi, she's not capable of doing work. What are you talking about? Even if she's sick and she refuses to do work, you can reduce her. What do you mean? A chola is not capable of doing? She's sick. She's laid up in bed. How can you expect her to do any work? The answer is that even the second shita, who is that? Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina also agrees that if she refuses to have bia, she refuses to grant him conjugal visits, that's certainly moredes. Everybody agrees with that. That they have him rest. Keep pligi b'melecha. The machlok is melecha if she refuses to do work. That's not moredes. That's not moredes, right? Everybody said that's not considered moredes that we reduce the ksuba. Again, if she refuses to live with him and to do any work at all, so either he'll hire somebody else or he'll have it out or he'll give her a get. But just doing melacha, that's not considered rebellion. It's moredes either way, whether she refuses bia or she refuses to do work. Either way, it's moredes in the sense that she gets her ksuba reduced. But let's analyze this. This price that we just said that includes whether it said achas arus, achas nesua, chola, shemeres yavam. Everybody is included afilu nida. So we're going to discuss that now in more detail. Gufa hamaredes abala. She rebels against her husband. We reduce her ksuba week by week. Shiva dinarim b'Shabbos. $7 a week. Abiyud Omer Shiva Tarpikin, 7 half dinners. Rabboseinu Chazru B'Nimnu. Then the rabbis took a vote a second time, and they said no. Shemachrizin Aleh Arba Shabbosos. We call out on 7 Shabbosim. We call out publicly. This woman is a rebellious woman. Zuachazu 4 weeks in a row. 4 weeks in a row. The Shulchan Law Bezdin, and Bezdin sends her a notice. Aviyadas Shafilu Ksubasach Me'amana. Even if your ksuba is, let's say, $10,000. If sadata, you've lost the whole thing. In other words, not like we said you reduce her by 7 dinners a week until there's nothing left, or that you go into her assets and extend it for a long period of time, even up to a year. No, you give her 4 weeks. You announce it publicly, and then you can divorce her, and she loses the entire ksuba. Then Brisa goes on. This is the part that we quoted before. Whether she's whether she's betrothed and she refuses to marry him, or Nesua, afilu nida, afilu chol, afilu shemeres yavam. Yeah, that's what the Brisa said. So we have two opinions. We have our mission which says you reduce the ksuba, and we have the Rav Seinu who took a vote later on and said, no, we're not going to, but it's not going to extend it. We give her 4 weeks. 4 weeks is all the time we're going to give her to reconsider. And if she doesn't, she can lose her entire ksuba. Amalei Rav Chia Bar Yosef Shmuel. Public proclamation that she's a Mora and husband. Correct. Correct. That's right. They'll say, yeah, she's more. I don't know if they announce the reason, but they'd say she's Mora. If they learn the Gemara, they'll know that the reason is either because of work or because of this. You make a public announcement on Shabbos. Now, notice when we said, so we'll come in a minute. Amalei Rav Chia Bar Yosef L'Shmuel. So Nida Bas Tashmishi. What do you mean? First of all, you said Nida. If a woman, even a Nida who refuses Bia, she's also considered Moras. What do you mean? A Nida cannot be with her. Amalei. If a woman just says to her husband, listen, I'm a nida, we got to wait a few more days until I go to the mikveh, that's one thing. But if while she's a nida, she says, I'm not going to ever have beer with you again, that's it. That's it. I mean, you hear about cases today, or they just refuse to go to the mikveh. Unfortunately, when fights break out, that's what happens a lot, right? They stop to go to the mikveh. So in other words, it's one thing if my wife's in need of saying, that's okay, we'll hold out another few days, right? But if she says, that's it, we're not having bia anymore, that's what we mean over here. We only announce in the shuls, we call out, we don't make a public announcement on the radio or in the streets, but only in the shuls and in the Beit Medrash. It makes sense. It says, Arba Shabbos Azu Achazu, 4 Shabbosim, week after week. When are people in shul and in the base medrash? As we know, many people only come to shul on Shabbos, right? Huh? Yeah. Interesting that you see Shabbos, the word Shabbos is sometimes referring only to Shabbos, sometimes it refers to the week. Right? So here also, because you said the line before said, we reduce her ksuba, shiva dinar bis Shabbos, that means a week per week. And then 2 lines later, machrizin aleh arba Shabbos, that means Shabbos itself. Okay, fine. So that's as far as calling out and the 2 opinions. Amar Rav Chama, pamayim sholchan la. Rav Chama adds on, this is important, this note, because Tosfos learns the following Gemara different than Rashi. Amar Rav Chama, pamayim sholchan la. They send her from the Bezdin, they send her 2 notices mi Bezdin, one before each calling out and one after calling out. Now it's telling you, listen, I'm warning you now, we're going to announce this publicly, and you're going to lose your entire ksuba if you don't reconsider, because you're a mored against your husband. Now, we're going to talk, so till now, all right, so let's just finish one more thing. Darish Rav Nachman Rav Chisda halacha b'seim. So Nachman Rav Chisda said the halacha is like the second vote that the rabbis took, that we don't reduce her $7 a week until it's gone, but rather we tell her, we go to her, we try to counsel her before we announce it and after we announce it. We do that 4 Shabbosim in a row, and then we tell her, that's it, you lost your ksuba and get divorced. Amar Rava says, hi burcha. I'm learning now the way Rashi learns. Rashi says is no. To say that the halacha is like a Roseinu and that we give her 4 weeks and that's it, hi burcha, that makes no sense. Burcha is davar she'ein hagan. Rashi says it's improper, it's senseless. Right? Inside he says it's a motion of bur. Doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? What do you mean? My book said what's senseless about it? I said this halacha. I said the halacha is like Rabbi Seinu. I said it in the name of a great rabbi. I said it in the name of a great rabbi. One who's ever Yosef Chanina. I said in the name of Rabbi Chanina. So what do you mean it doesn't make sense? It makes sense to say don't drag this thing on out for an extended period of time. Tell her, listen, if you want to rebel, if you can't work things out, you want to rebel, you should know you're going to lose your entire ksuba. The iru command savar. So Rava, the way Rashi learns now, Tosfos different gears says the inu. He learns what's going on the last idea about that you announce it before and afterwards. Rashi learns very simply that iu, meaning Rava, who said that this halacha that you're saying, the halacha of Vaseinu, is senseless. Iu command savar. Who does he hold like? He holds like the first of the following opinions. He holds itmar Rava Rav Sheshis. This Rava himself said the name of Sheshis. Halacha nimlochim ba. The halacha is that we try to counsel her, right? We try to counsel her. Nimlochim ba. Mashnas kita machzirin aleh shetuchser ba mitochkach posum k'sabasim shos. And it's like our Mishnah. We reduce. In other words, we don't just give her an ultimatum and say 4 weeks in a row we're announcing it publicly. That's it. If you don't give in, you lose your whole ksuba. No, he says that's why we don't do that. We go like the Mishnah, that we counsel her, we advise her, we try to discuss it with her and say, look, we're going to give you a time, but meanwhile we're going to reduce your ksuba by X amount. Halacha nimlachem ba. Rafuna bar Yehuda Amar Rav Sheshes halacha einam lachem. Says no, we don't nachem ba. Rather, he goes like Rav was saying. So we have two opinions. What do you do with the moredas? We have an opinion of our Mishnah, and and Rav Sheshes said that's the halacha, that we reduce her by X amount going on for a period of time. We'll see even up to a year. And we have the opinion of Rav saying that no, we give her 4 weeks and that's it. Hechi dami moredas. Now, we've explained that moredas means if she refuses bia, or according to our opinion, even if she refuses to do the various jobs that the Chacham assigned her. But what's the nature of her rebellion? Why is she rebelling? We understand what she's rebelling from. That's what we discussed before. Now we're discussing why she's rebelling. Amar Meimer, the Amar Be'inale, I like him, I want to marry him, but we're having a fight now, and I want to make him suffer. That's I don't want to leave. I want to make him suffer. So that's what we're talking about over here. We counsel her, try to get them back together, try to work it out. That's what we're talking about over here. But if she says, I find him detestable, I can't stand being with him, I just can't stand him, lo kafinala, we don't try to force her to get back into the marriage, but rather, that's it. We say, Rashi says, lo kafinala lashosa elanosim laget yotzav tzuba. She says, I can't, there's nothing to talk about over here. I find detestable. If it's something you can, what is counseling? They say, work this out. What do you agree? What are you upset about? Try to work it out. But if she says, listen, I find him detestable, I can't be with him, and there's nothing you can do in a case like that, he's entitled to divorce her without ksuba. Marzutra Amar Kaifina law. Even in a case like that, we try to force her. Have a uvda, and he paskin that way himself, and he paskin aloha. But Akvam, there was a story like that where a woman said she found her husband, abominable. She couldn't stand being with him. Marzutra forced her to go back into it, by forcing her, by telling her that you're going to lose your whole ksuba. When they got back together, when he forced this woman to go back to her husband, they had a child who was a great rabbi, Rav Chanina from Surah. But that's not advisable to do. That's not the halacha. It was a special siyata d'shmaya that there was a bracha there that they had a good child. But that's not the right thing to do. If she finds him so detestable that she can't stand him, she just can't stand being with him, then there's no option rather than to force her. Now we have a story which we'll see can indicate the way Rashi learns that we're talking here about a case where she says, I couldn't stand the guy. Kal said Rav Zvid, the daughter-in-law of Rav Zvid, his daughter-in-law, Imrda Have, she was a rebellious woman. She rebelled against her husband, right? So when she rebelled against her husband, Rashi learns, it's again, not everybody knows that Rashi learns, that she says, I find him detestable, I can't stand being with him. So therefore he was entitled to divorce her without a ksuba. Tafisa Chachir, but what happened was she took her nice silk coat with her. The silk coat that was written into the ksuba, right? She put that into ksuba. It's like written into the ksuba like Nechsek Son Barzel. But still, if she rebelled in this manner and she wouldn't stay with her husband at all, and she found him detestable, she said, I can't stand it, then she loses everything. So here she took this coat. Yosef Amemar Azut Ravashi, these three rabbis, many times we just had them a few days ago, these three rabbis sat together. They were all colleagues. Yosef Rav Gamda Gabayah. Rav Gamda was sitting there too when these three rabbis were discussing the matter. Yosef Kamri, the three rabbis sat and they said, Mardef Sida Belosa Kaiman. If she rebelled, not only she loses the ksuba, she loses everything in the ksuba, including the dowry that she put into the ksuba that he's responsible to give her back. But if she rebelled, she loses everything. Just like if she died. Let's say she died and there were no children. The husband inherits her. Even though we had the ksuba been indifferent, that her male children are going to get her dowry over and above the regular Yerusha that they're going to get from the husband after he dies, after marrying several other women and have many other children. Fine, that's all fine if she had children, but if she dies with no children, the husband inherits her. Yes, we come in Mardiv said that she loses everything. That's what they said. They said she loses the coat too. Amalu Rav Gamda, so Rav Gamda said to Mishum Rav Zvid Gava Rava, because Rav Zvid is a great man. So you're flattering him. In other words, obviously Rav Zvid was not too happy about his daughter-in-law who's rebelling against his own son. and she sent her out with no ksuba. She took her mint coat or whatever. Today we'd say like she took her mint coat with her and said even her worn out mint coat or worn out clothing she's not entitled to. So why are you saying that? You're saying that she has to give back the coat. Why? Because you're trying to flatter Rav Zvid, by saying Rav Zvid, we're going to make this girl give everything back. Rav Kana said, "Me boy, Rava had this question whether she loses the clothes also. Like she loses even her worn out clothing, she loses that too for rebelling. Below push it, and the question was not decided. So how are you deciding it that she loses that too? Some say the story was the opposite. Yosef coming the same three rabbis, Rav Ashi, Mar Zutra, and Ameim were sitting, and they said Marda lo of Sibosa. She doesn't lose her clothing, her worn out clothing. She doesn't lose Kayam and the ones that are here now. Obviously, new stuff she wouldn't get. That belongs to the Ksuba, but worn out clothing that she's been wearing, he says, Marda, she didn't lose that. Amalu Rav Gaman said, Mishum Rav Zvid Gav because Rav Zvid is a great man, and he's so modest that he won't complain about this. In other words, he was upset that his daughter-in-law rebelled, and she loses her ksuba. But the clothing that's on her, we don't know what the halach is there. You're saying that she gets to keep that. Why are you poskening that way? Because he's a great man, he won't object because he's not going to make a fuss. He's a modest man. He'll accept your ruling. You're going to turn the judgment around on him. Again, why are you poskening that way? That question is undecided. Homer of Kana said, boy, Rav has a question below Pasha, and he wasn't Pasha the Shaila. So if he wasn't Pasha the Shaila, who are you to Pasha the Shaila, so to speak? You're less than him. So since we don't know what the halacha is, does she lose even her worn out clothes if she rebelled in this way where she found him, where in other words, where counseling wouldn't help? Probably all the cases that they have today, where they have shalom bias issues, they call that, right? There's cases where counseling helps, sometimes it doesn't help. So if she finds him so detestable, Gemara says counseling's not going to help. You can't talk to them. Just lose her with she goes out without a ksuba. What about her worn out clothes? The Gemara doesn't paskin it. So therefore, when the Gemara doesn't paskin it, it's like kol dal gvar, whoever grabbed it. Tafsa, if she took the clothes, lo mafkin, we don't take it away from her. Lo tafsa, she didn't take it, lo yavina, we don't give it to her. Umashina la tresi archishasa. Now the Gemara says that what? That this business that we said in the Mishnah, reduce her by $7 a week, even going into her assets, leave that up to a year, right? Umashina la tresi archishasa, you wait with the get for 12 months, not like Rav Hussein said, you give her 4 weeks and that's it. And during those 12 months, Leslam is on the ball. She's not entitled to get fed by the husband because she's not acting as a wife to a husband. And you reduce her ksuba to that all that time. Amar Rav Tuvi Bar Kistan. Now, Rav Tuvi Bar Kistan says Amar Shmuel. Now, he's saying a new memra. This memra sheds some light and also raises questions. Amar Shmuel. Yeah.
Even an issue. In other words, the fact that they did or did.
Yes, because he was an important man.
So what? What's it got to do with a judgment?
No, so that's what we're saying. They say, so Rav Kana said, no, not to a judgment. The judgment was a judgment.
Why do they care what he thinks?
No, that's what Rav Kana said to them. Why Rav Kana said to them, what? Not because of that, he just that was thrown in. They said, Rav Kana said to them, who are you to pass in the Shaila? Rava said he had a Shaila. It's like we had a Rabbi in Yeshiva who Tosa says Sarchi and Gadol, he would give an answer. If Tosa says Sarchi and Gadol, maybe you should leave it. Maybe you don't know the answer. So he says, Rava didn't know the answer. So what are you poskening? He says, why are you poskening? Because you're trying to flatter him or because you think he won't listen anyway? What are you poskening? Who are you to posken? That's really what was their point. I think the idea about because he was an Gadol was just thrown in. You're like, why are you doing that? Okay. So Rav Tuvi Bar Kistan says name Shmuel like this. Kosvini Geras married. You asked before, how is that done? They write a letter of rebellion. In other words, whatever you call that, a decree of rebellion that Pascha that she rebelled. I mean, maybe first Bezin, asks them, interviews them to say, well, let's understand what happened over here. Did you just forget to cook the eggs or something's really going on over here, right? So Kosvini gets married. Ala Rusa, only on an Arusa, then Kosvini gets married al Shemeres Yavam. So this is a difficult piece. What do you mean? If she's an Arusa who refuses to marry, right? She's betrothed, and now he calls her married, and she refuses to marry him, refuses to consummate. So then you write one. Then Kosvini Geras married al Shemeres Yavam. But if she's Shemeres Yavam, meaning Reuben married to Leah, died. Reuben died with no children. Leah is supposed to marry Shimon now, and she doesn't want to consummate with him. Then you don't write an Igeris merit. What's going on over here? Why? This doesn't make sense. When Shmuel's rules, this member of Shmuel apparently doesn't make sense. Meisvei. What do we just have in the Brisa? Whether she's betrothed or she's married. In all these cases, the rebellious issue arises. Remember, Shemeres Yavam, we discussed, is supposed to get the ksuba from the husband and all that. So you can also talk about reducing her ksuba. What do you mean? So the Gemara first says, this is the first answer. Gemara's give many answers here. Gemara's trying to figure out what does Shmuel mean. It's lo kasha. Kansha tavahu, kansha tavahi. The question was, remember, we said in the Mishnah, she rebels, but also it's possible that he rebels. If he rebels, you have to add on to the ksuba. So it depends whether he rebelled or whether she rebelled. Okay, meaning Shmuel is talking about where he rebelled. Where he rebelled, right? You write it on a rusa, but not on a shemeres yavam. Again, why does that make sense? We'll see. I'm sorry, the other way around. Kansha tavahi, I said where she demanded, right, that he gets married, marries her, and she demanded, and he rebels. Rav Shmuel is talking about where he rebels. If he rebels, that's what Shmuel means, where he says kos merit ala rusa, like for a rusa. If he rebelled, you write a writ that he rebelled, but not on a shemeres yavam. So in other words, when she wants to get married and he's rebelling, So again, that's not clear why.
You don't what?
You don't write a marriage. About him. In other words, the idea that he's supposed to add on to the ksuba, we don't do it if it's a shemeres yavam. Why not? Not clear. But the brisa is clearly speaking the regular case where she rebels. Let's say she doesn't want to have bia with him. So then you write a ksuba. All applies. That's where he wants to get married and she's rebelling. But the Rav Shmuel was talking about where she rebelled. So the Gemara says, Kansha Tavi, the Amar of Tachlifa Baravim Amar Shmuel, then Shmuel, it's the same Shmuel, Tavahu Niskakalo. If he wants to get married and he says, let's have bia, whatever the case was, Shemeres Yavam or Usa, whatever, Niskakalo, we attend to him, we write a writ against her. Tavahi, if she rebelled, ain't Niskakalo. Then we don't pay attention to her. Why not? The Mishnah said, this is also not clear, right? Because the Mishnah said that if he rebelled, you have to add on to the ksuba. So we write a writ of rebellion against him in that case too. So the Gemara is going to ask about that. Wait a minute. You're saying Shmuel speaking about where she wanted to get married and he rebelled, right? And there you say, you write it for an arusa, not an asua. So high kos when Igeris merit al arusa, the lashon is, you write an Igeris merit on an arusa. It sounds like that she rebelled. You write it on arusa. This arusa is a rebellious girl. La arusa mi boy. Let's just the other way around. Write it on her behalf. You're writing for arusa. If an arusa says, "Listen, I want to get married. What's going on here? I'm waiting for the wedding already a year here. What's going on?" And he says, "No, I don't want to consummate with you." Right? So you say, "There, you write it." But you should say, you write it for the arusa, not al arusa, like she's the rebellious one. According to you, you're saying Shmuel says that he is the rebellious one, so it should say le arusa mi boy le. Says halo kasha tanim arusa. Okay, that's not such a big kasha. Change the word instead of al arusa. Change it. Should have been said le arusa. But the basic idea is still a problem. So ma'isha shemeres yavam delo. So why? Okay. So for the arusa again, where he rebelled and she's an arusa, he rebelled. She wants to get married, and he says, "No, I'm not going to." So we write a nigeris mered, right? We write a letter of writ of rebellion against him, but not if she's a shemeres yavam. Why not? So again, this Shmuel's memory is difficult. Ma'ishna shemeres yavam delo darminan zil lo mifkedis. So what's the reason why? If she listen to this, she's not married yet, right? She's a shemeres yavam. She's waiting for Shimon to consummate, and he doesn't want to consummate. So we say you don't write a igeris merit about that. If they're married, it's one thing. You start adding on rebelling. If he rebelled, you add on to a ksuba $3 a week, right? Like the Mishnah said. But shemeres yavam, not. Why not? Because she wants to get married because she doesn't have to be kind of the mitzvah of pru or vu. It's not so bad. She's not married. You don't have to become some. So Rusanami name Malay, let us say the same thing. Zillo mifkedus, say the same thing. In other words, what sense does it make to say this goes against our Mishnah? Say our Mishnah speaking about where they're married. But they're not married. If she's an arusa or she's a shemeres yavam, what difference does it make? If you're saying you don't punish him if he rebelled if she's a shemeres yavam. and arusa you do punish him? What's the reason why you don't buy shemer siyaf? Why? Because you could say she doesn't have to be kind mitzvah approval. She doesn't have to be married. Arusa, you could say the same thing. Ella b'ba machmas taina. Must be speaking about what? That she comes with a claim. What's her claim? Maybe this is a possible answer. This is also going to be slugged up. Ella, but we're at the first of the wide lines. Ella b'ba machmas taina. The Amr, she says be'ina chutra liyada. What do you mean? I have to get married. I know I don't have a mitzvah of puravu. L'mais we paskin that a woman doesn't have a mitzvah of puravu. However, the Torah says that he does have a mitzvah of puravu. So how does that work? He has a mitzvah. She doesn't have a mitzvah. Why? The answer is Hashem put it in the nature of women that they want to get married and have children. So, or she could say, listen, I want to get married. Be'ina chutra liyada. I would like a cane, a staff, for my hand. In my old age, I want something that I want somebody to take care of me. I want a staff for my hand, and I want a spade for my burial. In other words, I want to have children, somebody to take care of me in my old age, and when I die, I want somebody to bury me. So if that's the case by a arusa, in other words, what difference does it make? This member of Shmuel that we started with doesn't make sense. He says, if he rebelled, if she's an arusa, we go after him. But if she's a shemer siyav, not. What's the difference between them? It doesn't make any difference. If it's because they want to get married and have children, same thing. Forget that whole answer. Both cases are speaking about the Brisa and Shmuel. We're all speaking about where he wants to get married and she's rebelling. Below kasha. Kan lichlotz v'kan liyavam. In other words, this is the problem by shemer siyav. Kan lichlotz v'kan, because we said in the Brisa, shemer siyav also rebelled. You take it out on her. You penalize her. Let's call it. You fine her. You penalize her. One case is speaking lachalitza, and one speaking about where he wants to give chalitza. One case the Amar up to Rav Yochanan Tava lichlot. If let's say he says, listen, it's time to give chalitza. I want to give chalitza, and let's be done with it. Niskakenlo. Then we attend to him, meaning, she doesn't. What is she saying? She's saying, no, I want to give him. Right? He wants to have chalitza, Tava lichlot, and she says, no, I want to make ibam. Niskakenlo. We write, she's rebelling. She refuses to go through the chalitza act, to the chalitza process. She doesn't do chalitza, and she refuses chalitza. She says, if you marry me, fine, but I'm not going to do chalitza. Then we do whose ksuba are we reducing? The ksuba that she had from the first husband, right? That it goes from there. We reduce it. Tava liyavam, right? But let's say he says, no, I want to have bia, I want to make yibum, and she is what? And she's saying, no yibum, I want chalitza. Ain't this kakanah? We don't like that. The Gemara says, "Ma'ishna the low." Why by yibum do we say we don't fine her, right? We don't. When he wants to make yibum, she doesn't. Damrina lay. We tell him zil. What's your problem? You want to make yibum and she doesn't want to. She refuses to marry you, so go marry somebody else. This is before the Chayim Rabbeinu Ger. She'll make him marry another wife. Look what's nami. If she refuses by chalitza also, he wants to give her chalitza and she says no, only yibum. Name also zilvin asavit. Why don't you just get married? What's your problem? You're saying if he demands that she has yibum with him and she says no, I want chalitza, and he says no, I only want to do yibum, right? So there we say no. So we don't. She's not rebelling. She just says give me chalitza. But if he demands chalitza and she says no, I want yibum, right? Demands chalitza, then. If she meant chalitza and she doesn't want to do it, she only wants yibum, then what's the difference? What's the difference between them? What's the difference? Either way, you say, listen, she doesn't want to participate with you in whatever it is, right? So go marry somebody else. What's your problem? It's her problem, right? We say, but chalitza, if she doesn't get chalitza or yibum, she's the one who's stuck, right? You can marry somebody else. What's your problem? Ela Amar, the answer is kivan da gidabe. The answer is we're saying. What's your problem? Why if he demands that you give chalitza and she says no, I only want yibum, we reduce her. What's your problem? Just say go marry somebody else. El Damri says no, kiva dagida be. Since she's attached to me, there's a zika, right? I'm supposed to marry her or give her chalitza. Lo kayov liachrita. People won't want to marry me. People will say you're still tied up with her, right? Now, no father's going to want to give his daughter to him as a wife, because he's still involved with her. Nobody knows how that's going to end up, right? So the same way, what's the reason why? So the same thing if he demands chalitza, right, and he demands yibam and she doesn't want a chalitza, also the same thing should apply. He's not going to be able to get married to somebody else. So what's the difference? Why one case we say if he demands yibam and she only wants to do chalitza, we say over there that ain't a low. We don't attend him. We don't find her. Why? Because he can marry somebody else. He can marry somebody else too. The answer is that the reason you could say, it's a veiled demand by chalitza. I want chalitza and she only wants yibam. It's a veiled demand because nobody's going to marry me as long as I haven't done chalitza. So here too, if I demand yibam and she wants chalitza, also you should give her a fine because nobody's going to want to marry in by time. In both cases, he demanded that she make yibam. Again, we're looking for what's Shmuel's reason why if a Shemeres Yavam refuses to consummate with him, to marry him, why don't we give her a rebellious note? Why don't we fine her? Both cases speaking about where he demands, I think, even below Kasha, Kam Mishnah Rishona, Kam Mishnah Achrona. One was speaking about, according to the earlier Mishnah, the earlier Psak, that you're supposed to make even, and one according to the later Psak, like we learned in Yavamas, it's man. Mitzvahs Yibam, Kadam Mitzvahs Chalitza. You're first supposed to do Yibam. The Torah's preference is that you should fulfill Yibam, help him Shem La'achiv, carry it on, take over from your brother, etc. For Rishona, that was at the beginning, Shem Miskav L'Shem Mitzvah, when they had a kavanah for the mitzvah, they did it L'Shem Shemayim. Achshav Shem Miskav L'Shem Mitzvah, now that unfortunately they did it for carnal reasons. He had a thing for his sister-in-law, right? He's not doing the kind of the mitzvah. Today, it's almost unheard of. And in recent times, up in Sephardi communities, until recent times, till modern times, let's call that, they did do Yibam. But the Psak of Abishol was that they're not doing the Shem Mitzvah. It's remember the Gemara over there was on the children are almost like Mamzerim because he's not doing the Shem Mitzvah. Amr Mitzvah Chalitza Kanam Mitzvah Yibam. So that's what we mean over here. In both cases, they wanted to do Yibam. So when we say when the Brisa said that if he demands, she's a Shemeres Yavam and she rebels, you can reduce the ksuba. Why can you reduce the ksuba? Because she's supposed to do Yibam. But later on, Shmuel was talking about after like the Mishnah Achrona, after they changed it, said, no, you should do chalitza. So if he demands that she does yibum and she refuses, that's not a reason to penalize her, just the opposite. She's doing the right thing because she shouldn't do yibum, you should do chalitza. So that's what it comes out, that's what Shmuel said. When Shmuel said, I'm thinking Shmuel, a girl who's in Arusa and she refuses to consummate, for her you can write a written and start fining her. But a Shemeres Yavam, who bisman hazeh, after Mishnah Shnia, we learn you're not supposed to do Yibam. So if she refuses Yibam, she's doing the right thing. So you're not going to penalize her. All right, we'll pick it up from here tomorrow. It's a short day tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.